Scuba goat under the sea. The podcast for the inquisitive diver.
Hey there, dive buddies, and welcome to the show. I've had a few conservationists on the show now, and the opinion that I'm forming is that the unified message sometimes gets lost through politics, lack of education, and simply too many differences of opinion. One subtopic is that of the shark control measures off the Australian coastline. Now, we've heard in recent episodes how conservation groups, foundations, and charities are working together to increase the solidarity of the overriding requirement to ensure a voice is heard. The voice that needs to be heard stems from those that cannot speak our language, simply our wildlife within the world's oceans. Fortunately, we do have many voices that can speak for them and recognise their importance in our existence. Today, I have the extreme pleasure of welcoming onto the show a man who has worked tirelessly to draw together recognisable faces, voices, their experiences, and his skills as a director in creating a sensational documentary film, Envoy Shark Cull. Andre Borell. Welcome to the show, buddy. Well done.
Thank you. Looking forward to being here and where we go with this conversation. There's so many options. It's such a layered topic. So, yeah, let's hook in. Let's talk about shark culling and filmmaking, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I've got to say, I watched it. I was set to watch it last Wednesday with the premiere, and I had my tickets. I had the perfect position in the cinema in George Street in Sydney, and it was just fantastic. So looking forward to it, and then obviously, COVID gets in the way again. But having had a quick convo with you back and forth, I managed to watch it online at home, and it's simply a fantastic documentary, and I can't applaud you enough on the work you've put into it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm honestly quite surprised and overwhelmed by the feedback. There is it's sort of exceeded my expectations. As a filmmaker, you watch something 100 times through the editing process, and you know your work a little too well, and you pick holes in it, and then to see it actually go out to audiences and the overwhelmingly positive reaction has been really, really nice. It seems to be a enjoyable watch, a confronting watch at sometimes, educational, but most importantly for a documentary of this type is it seems to inspire people. So, yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. And it is an inspiration as well. I mean, you've pulled together some amazing people. And for those that are listening, they might recognise the narrator himself, Eric Banner. How the hell did you get Eric Banner onto your show?
When the idea for this project was just first, just an idea in the back of my head that wouldn't go away, kept coming back, and I knew it needed to do something a little bit different to most conservation films to make sure it reached outside kind of our bubble, if you like, to speak not just preaching to the converted, so to speak, but to reach outside of that. And I thought one great way to do that would be a well-known, obviously with our cast and that we had on screen, but I also thought a narrator could play an important role in that. And just his voice, his tone of voice, I felt like suited the issue perfectly. So yeah, just from literally day one, I was like, imagine if you get Eric Banner, like he'd be perfect fit. And then we did. We approached his management, and he looked into the issue, obviously, because he realised that he would, by virtue of being a narrator, become kind of a bit of a spokesperson for this issue. So he looked into the issue, couldn't believe what he found, much like me when I first learned about this issue. And yeah, it all happened pretty quick, to be honest. Like between pitching it to yes, and signing contracts, it was all fairly fast process after he did his due diligence. So yeah, still pinching myself if I'm honest. But there's no crazy story of we were trapped in an elevator together and I chewed his ear off or anything. It was all formal through the correct channels, and it obviously struck a chord with him, which is really cool, really really cool.
Yeah, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. And before we get on to the rest of the lineup as well, let's just take it back a little bit, because this is not something that's created overnight, and it's got to come from maybe a personal passion of yourself. But where did the idea initially come from?
I grew up in Queensland, in Brisbane, so not on the beach, but regularly, every school holiday would visit either the Sunshine Coast or the Gold Coast. And born, bred, grew up here. It wasn't until my mid to late 20s, I don't remember exactly when it was, when I actually learned what shark nets are and what drum lines are and what those bright coloured buoys you see off popular beaches are. And the only way I learnt about it was after having gotten into scuba diving and being a bit more aware of, I guess, environmental issues. That's when I learnt about it, and I was like, I couldn't really believe that you can grow up somewhere and not be aware of such a serious environmental issue that is literally happening 500 meters from the most popular and well attended beaches. So look, I was a little bit embarrassed being a scuba diver. I was quite angry at what was happening. These beautiful animals, that many of which I hadn't even seen yet, in real life. I was seeing on Sea Shepherd's Instagram page dead in shark nets, and I was, it just started. I guess it pushed all my buttons. It was a waste of taxpayer money, which grinds my gears. It pushed all my buttons, and the idea wouldn't go away. And I think that's when you've got an idea for a project that you kind of got to tackle, is when you try and put it to one side and you can't. It keeps coming back. It keeps coming back. It keeps coming back. So that's how I became aware. It was through social media, through Sea Shepherd, and I believe you've had John O'Clark on a previous episode speaking about what they do in exposing this. Jono's part of the film. Sea Shepherd gave us a lot of their footage, their archive footage of the horrible stuff they've documented over the years in these shark nets and on these drum lines. And look, the idea just wouldn't go away. Started reaching out to people such as Jono to gauge their interest in being involved. From there it just snowballed. Like, once it got going, more and more people said yes. More and more people heard about what we were trying to do. More and more people were offering footage and interviews and blah blah blah. And here we are. Not that, in documentary filmmaking terms, not that long a time period. Kind of 2.5 years from first frame being shot to it actually being out. Okay. So 2.5 years later, it's released and out in the world via cinemas and at-home viewing for lockdown people very recently, and then coming to streaming pretty shortly. So been a bit of a whirlwind. It's probably the best way to summarize it.
Yeah. I did say about streaming. I did notice that it's available on an Amazon platform. I think it's in the US. Is it?
Yeah. So Discovery Plus. It's on Discovery Plus, right, which is Discovery's new streaming platform for US and UK. A bunch of other European regions and stuff. I believe our sales agents just tidying up the finer details of deals to get it into the other regions over that part of the world. And then in Australia, we can't announce it quite yet, but I'll update you as soon as I can. I'm sure you can put the details in the show notes, but it's going to be going on quite a good Australian streaming platform. We can't talk about it quite yet because not all the I's are dotted and the T's crossed. But good result in terms of streaming. It is not Netflix, but it's the clear second best option for Australia. So that again will hopefully get it in front of your average Joe, your average mum and dad viewer, and get this issue the attention it deserves.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, we talk about, and we are focusing on Australia because that's the topic of conversation. However, I think a global awareness on this issue is something that's going to be a huge factor going forward with the representation that you've formed against these archaic measures.
Yeah, I think. Look, there's different ways that you can inspire a government into change, I think, and sometimes you've got to use the carrot and sometimes you've got to use the stick. And on this issue, the carrot hasn't been working. They've had scientists and all sorts of people advocating for modernization of these programs and making them more humane and also more effective for people at the beach. That's been happening for a long, long time. So I kind of came into the issue from the outside and went, okay, let's try the stick and we'll make something that shows just how horrible these programs are, which isn't hard to do. It's not hard to show the absolute atrocity that they are. We thought we'd create that and put it out to the world, including, globally. And, maybe the stick of being embarrassed on the world stage, maybe being beaten over the head with that will inspire change. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. Really hope so, because I've not stopped looking into this topic since speaking to Jono on the podcast, and that's been some months now, and I just can't find and fathom why this is still going on. It's And you cover it so well in the doco itself. And the government just staying silent, just not responding. I'm having a hard time finding an excuse for them whatsoever. I like to play devil's advocate, but I really can't on this one.
Look, and we tried to play devil's advocate making the film. Like, we really did. We're like, where's the evidence as to why this is going on? Like, it makes no sense. And we asked the Queensland and the New South Wales Departments of Fisheries to, be part of the film, sit down for an interview, and they refuse. We were on The Project recently, Australian evening news program. They heard our side of the story, and obviously news being news, they have to go to the other side for balance. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to talk to them either. They hide. They hide, and to me, there's only one reason you hide, and that's when you know you're wrong. If you had facts and science and everything on your side, and you're the government minister or the public servant responsible for running these programs, you would not mind sitting down with me or a reporter from The Project or a journalist. You would not mind sitting down and putting forward your side of the story. No, here's why we still run these programs. Yes, it's bad. It kills animals. Yes, there's bycatch and we kill animals we don't need to. But here's the evidence as to why it's important we keep doing it. If you're confident in your program, you would do that. But they're not. Mm. They're not. They hide. They hide behind a desk and they hide behind nonsense, fluff, political spin written statements because they don't want to be on camera. They hide behind these written statements that say nothing or deceive. And they don't want to have the conversation on it because they know they would absolutely get picked to pieces because, nothing's on their side. Not facts, not science, not ethics, not morality. Nothing is on their side when it comes to these programs. So The only reason they keep running it is to cover their own bums. They don't want to be the one that made the decision to replace nets with a better alternative. And then something still happens at those beaches because nothing is 100%. These nets and drum lines, they're 0% effective. Drone surveillance might be 75% effective at spotting sharks. It might not always work. Personal deterrents, for example, that you can wear as a diver or a surfer when nets and drum lines aren't going to cover you. They might not be 100% effective. They might only be 90% effective. You know what I mean? Mm. So they're scared to make the move to something else. Something may still happen because there is no silver bullet that 100% protects you. And then they will get crucified for that, even though they've replaced nets and drum lines, which is not effective at all.
Yeah. Well, let's just clarify for those people that probably haven't listened to Jono's episode. And just to reiterate, Jono is the coordinator for Sea Shepherd's Apex Harmony, which focuses on drum lines and shark nets up in Queensland and a bit of New South Wales, I believe, as well at times. Do you want to just explain the two issues that we've got here for those that are new to the subject?
Absolutely. So in New South Wales, it's called a bather protection program. In Queensland, it's called a shark control program. Both of them are actually a shark culling program. They are designed through the two methods that I'll go into in a second, shark nets and drum lines. They're designed to catch and kill sharks to reduce the local population of sharks. The logic being when these programs were introduced, which is 1937 and 1962 respectively, New South Wales and Queensland, the logic being less sharks means less shark bites. We now know through decades and decades of data that does not work. A shark bite is such an inherently rare event. Fishing down a population doesn't make a difference unless you were to get rid of every shark, which is obviously not going to happen and a terrible, terrible, terrible idea for the ecosystem. This style of program is never going to be effective. A shark net is, like I said, a fishing device. A lot of people think it's a barrier, that it separates sharks from humans, or that it's really long and it encloses a beach or encloses a bay. It's not. They are in New South Wales. They are 150 meters long, bottom set. And they're only 6 meters high. They sit in about 12 meters of water. So they're comically small. If you think they're a barrier, they're comically small. They're not a barrier. They're there to catch, entangle, and kill sharks. They're also very effective at doing that to other animals, which are recorded as bycatch. Queensland's net is ever so slightly different, 183 meters long, 6 meters deep again, but they're top set, so they only cover the top half of the water column. New South Wales cover the bottom half of the water column. Again, no attempt to be a barrier, no attempt to keep sharks away from swimmers or surfers, purely there to catch, entangle, drown sharks. Again, kill a lot of other animals as well.
Mm.
Drum lines are just a baited hook, a big baited hook hanging from a buoy, a bright fluorescent buoy that is anchored to the bottom, to the seafloor. They are baited and they're there to attract sharks, hopefully hook them, and that shark will either die over time, or when the contractor comes along next to rebait the hooks and he finds a shark that's still alive, if it's one of 19 target species in Queensland, that shark will be killed. If it's a different animal, it would be released in whatever state that happens to be in.
Mm.
That's the core mechanics of the program. It is a fishing program, and it is very successful at catching and killing things. What it is not very successful at is reducing the likelihood of shark bite at beaches that have this equipment.
Mm. And there's so many different factors in there as well that we can pick holes in, and you certainly do that through your cast on the show, on the doco. But one thing I wanted to point out as well on the nets, you mentioned they're 186 metres long in Queensland and only 6 metres depth. And they're designed to apparently catch sharks. But the mesh size of the nets is only 500 millimetres, which it doesn't take a scientist to work out that anything that's longer than your arm is going to get caught up in that. And when we're talking about bycatch, you're looking at everything. Dolphins, rays, in some instances, humpback whales, in quite a few instances, actually, looking at the figures over the years. And Jono was saying that they're now restricted. They're not allowed to go near the nets.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. And when you dig into the reasoning they use to defend their decision to put that exclusion zone in place, they call it a 20-metre exclusion zone. Can't go within 20 metres of shark control equipment. It's clearly in place for organisations like Jono or like Jono and Sea Shepherd or filmmakers like me to not be able to capture this horrible footage. Because when this horrible footage is shown to the world, the program looks very, very, very bad. So that's clearly why it's in place. They say, yeah, this is where you see just how sinister and how disgusting and how low the government will go. In the logic they used to justify putting in a 20-metre exclusion zone was saying it's for safety reasons and it's dangerous equipment and people have died in it. So therefore we need a 20-metre exclusion zone. What they didn't mention is the one fatality that has happened from being entangled in shark control equipment was 27 years before that exclusion zone was implemented. So if it's really about safety, 27 years is a long time to have a think about it. It was also, I believe, 11-year-old boy that it happened to. So this is where it gets dark in terms of you have to have a very, very hard, good look at these people that are supposed to be representing you and supposed to be there in power, doing what's right for the community. And they use the death of an 11-year-old boy 27 years ago to pass an amendment to the Fisheries Act to protect their own interests. That's pretty disgusting.
It's well, quite frankly, it's sick, isn't it?
You have a good hard look at yourself, for God's sake. Whoever decided that was an okay idea to A, make the decision, and then B, use that as the spin to put on it and justify it. Seriously, have a good hard look in the mirror. It's a joke.
It's no surprise that politicians get a bad rep when that kind of thing occurs.
Yeah, that one really riles me up, and through sheer coincidence and this weird 7 degrees of separation stuff. As we were near the completion of the film, we had no plans to include this person, but as we were near the completion of the film, someone who knew someone who knew someone knew the best mate of that boy who did pass away 27 years ago. And yeah, he reached out and wanted to be part of it and tell his side of the story, and he was there the day it happened. So that was just the weirdest of coincidences how that came to pass, and it's probably one of the more moving moments in the film when he talks about that day and what he thinks of the government using his best mate when he was a kid, his death 27 years ago, for their own cause. And
he does an exceptional job as well. Hats off to him for speaking out the way he does. Must have been difficult.
And that's I believe he said it's one of the first times he's ever spoken about it, not just publicly, just like ever.
Wow.
So yeah, huge amount of gratitude to him for having the courage to do that, and yeah, he did it because of his position on these programs, which is they don't work and they kill a lot of stuff and they're a joke. And obviously the added fuel on the fire, what tipped him over the line to reach out and say, I need to say something here, was a press release the Queensland government put out to justify their 20-metre exclusion zone that used his friend's death. And he went, no, disgusting. There's no other word for it.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Now, talking of shark incidents, you also have a lot of input from Paul de Gelder, who recounts his incident in quite a bit of detail, and he's not afraid of coming forward in support of sharks, even though he's now missing 2 limbs.
Yeah, I think that's an important part of the story to tell. And to be honest, like when I was sitting down and going, who do we want to talk to and who do we want to interview? A shark bite survivor didn't actually jump to mind immediately. But it was once we got deeper in the process, I was like, no, this is that, and surfers and a voice from the surfing community was lacking. And I was like, no, we got to get this. We got to get this side of things as well. And yeah, I mean, Paul went through something horrible and horrific, and he's just such an advocate for sharks and such a top guy. Like, honestly, he's such a generous guy with his time and his reach of his audience and stuff like that. Like, he's just a good dude. And it would be easy for him to hate sharks and think that they should all die after what happened to him. But he goes the opposite way, because as many shark bite survivors do, but probably him to an even greater level than most people. So yeah, such an advocate for sharks, and that's pretty incredible considering what he went through. Yeah.
And I think the one of the factors that we've got to play in this as well is that, people's fear, and that fear, we're living in an era at the moment going from the 70s onwards where the shark was the horror story in the movies. And, I, as a kid, I was born in the 70s, so going into the 80s, you wouldn't get me anywhere near the water. Hell no, I wouldn't even put a toe in it. But I think now that you've got the likes of the younger generation coming through, like Madison Stewart, who are advocating, they're probably not having to be brought up with that experience of fearing what's in the water. Did you find any of that going through your research?
Look, I think yes, we did speak to some scientists and other researchers that have looked into what plays into the human perception of sharks and our almost irrational, statistically speaking, almost irrational fear of sharks. And Hollywood plays a role, and media do play a role as well. And look, a lot of people in this space like to just royally bash the media and say you're the problem. You make them out to be monsters and man eaters and blah 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 blah, which is true. Like you see the language used in the reporting of a shark bite, and that is true. But I also I don't take it out in most cases on the individual journalist. Like, they've got a decision or an instruction or a mandate from higher up to sensationalize and do what sells and have a headline that gets clicks and use imagery that gets clicks. Like, that's not journalists in most cases. There's some bad eggs, but in most cases, that's not journalists making that decision. That's higher ups going, we know this works commercially. If we hype up these incidents and use this type of imagery and this type of wording, we get this many more percentage of clicks, and that translates to this many more ad dollars. Like, I see how it's gotten here. But that doesn't make it okay, but I also kind of get it. Like most people there are just trying to do their job, and then they have a headline writer or the person who chooses the imagery kind of come and sensationalize the hell out of it. But media, you're right, Jaws and all that sort of stuff, definitely. But nowadays, there's so many positive voices for sharks, but one of the negative ones can be media, and I get it. I get it because they're a business, and if they don't use this sensationalist fear-mongering nonsense, their competitor will and will outperform them. So I kind of get it, but also that to me says something's fundamentally broken there. You know what I mean? Like commercial interests should probably not be driving news or journalism decisions. So yeah, I think it's more an indication of a larger problem, of a broken system, rather than just pointing at anyone who works in the media and go, every journalist who's ever written about sharks is a jerk, because I just don't think that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Fair point.
But there is a problem higher up. There is a problem higher up. Like that whole culture of if it bleeds, it leads, and we'll say anything and sensationalize anything to get more views and sell more ads. Like that's the problem.
Yeah, it's literally clickbait, isn't it?
It is, and that's the age we live in. And you know, when you've only got like a handful of people owning pretty much all news in a country, like who's going to hold them to account? Yeah, politicians are all shit scared of them.
Yeah,
so they're not going to do it. Yeah. Anyway, that could be a whole podcast on its own.
We'll do another doco focusing on the bad side of journalism.
G'day Scuba Goat listeners, Rod here, producer of the show. I hope that you're enjoying this episode and that you're subscribed and following the pod on your favourite app. Please keep an eye out for the all-new Scuba Goat website coming soon. Now, back to Matt and the show.
Going back to the politics behind it all, the section of government that look after the drum lines and nets are the fisheries department. So those people that are meant to be keeping humans safe and advocates for, being heroes and relocating endangered sharks are actually fishermen.
Well, yeah, I mean, what response if beach safety, bather safety, surfer safety, whatever, if that's going to be put in the hands of a government department and that department is chosen to be fisheries, what what program are they going to come up with other than fish sharks? Like they've got no other moves. That's the only thing that's in their wheelhouse. Like, oh, you want us to keep people safe? Yeah, we'll kill a bunch of sharks. Like that's their only thing that they're ever going to do. So yeah, you're quite right in that. Like, why is it even under that department? Shouldn't it be under the Department of Environment and Science or like I don't know the answer of where it should sit, but it sitting in the fisheries department, like they don't have many cards to play. Yeah. Other than fish stuff and kill stuff. So yeah, I think it's the program having evolved in the direction it has and their defensiveness about it and unwillingness to engage about it is a consequence of what department it sits with. And why is that fisheries? It's just a hangover from when they were created. These programs were created in 1937 or 1962. Like at the time, seemed to make sense. Like let's fish a bunch of sharks and that should keep people safer. Who better to do that? Fisheries department. Is that still the way to go now? When we want to have non-lethals that provide a better level of protection and B, don't destroy the environment. Is the fisheries department the right department to run that? Probably not.
And then it goes without saying that, if they're putting bait on hooks, then the chances are if there's been a beach with an incident, they're going to be chumming the water. And these drum lines, albeit they say it's a long way from shore and it's safe, it's not a long way at all, is it?
It's 500 meters, not a long way. Like I don't. Put it this way: this is how to decide if it's a long way from shore or not. If I applied for a permit to run a shark cage diving operation 500 meters from a popular beach, I highly doubt I would get that permit approved. Yeah, because that would be seen as pretty stupid and dangerous to rock up with a boat, put bait in the water, and try and attract sharks to a cage for tourists to see. 500 meters from Bondi Beach or 500 meters from Surfers Paradise Beach, that would be pretty dumb. Like, I don't think I would get that approved, yet they do it every single day. Yeah. They literally have a contractor boat that goes along and rebaits these hooks day after day after day, 500 meters from shore. In some cases, it's closer than 500 meters because they want to set them in a certain depth of water. And if there's a drop-off, in some cases, they're closer. Like Snapper Rocks, very popular surf break down at Coolangatta. I haven't got the tape measure out, but they sure as hell look a lot closer than 500 meters to me. They are literally right behind the surf break.
Yeah.
Baited hooks.
Yeah, so they're baiting hooks, which everybody knows that a shark can, sense blood and distress and God knows what from miles away. It's going to draw in those species that they're trying to deter, and they're putting it right underneath the nose of the surfers.
Correct, or behind the surfer's back. Yeah, exactly right. And not only that, not only the bait on the hook. Here's where it gets even more dangerous, and something we were really surprised to find. When it gets even more dangerous is when a small harmless shark or a turtle or a dolphin gets hooked on that hook or tangled in that net. Because now not only do you have a piece of bait on a hook, a piece of chum on a hook, now you have a live distressed animal. That's an even bigger attractant to a shark. So the amount of times we found evidence of smaller harmless animals having been predated on by, judging by the bite size, a very large shark, is mind-blowing. Like, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of documented incidents of it happening. And some of them we just have comments in a spreadsheet that the contractor's written down. That's what happened. Some we actually have images and video of this that we've obtained through Freedom of Information. The amount of times small harmless sharks, other animals that you don't care being in the area, like it's just zero concern to you, have been caught and then have clearly, going by the size of the bite mark, attracted a much larger animal in for a free meal, then that animal's in that area and having a swim around, what else there might be. It's stupid. It is beyond stupid, and it's terrifying. It really is. Like, we're talking, great white size bites out of tiger sharks or great hammerheads.
Yeah.
So that's what you're doing. And again, to reiterate, 500 meters at most. In some cases, they're closer. 500 meters at most from your most popular beaches. Like, it boggles the mind. It really does.
It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous indeed. What's the way forward? What should they be doing?
Modernisation is kind of the word we've come up with in our campaign to kind of summarise what should happen to these programs. So modernisation meaning a transition towards non-lethal technologies, as in they don't kill animals, as well as more effective technologies. And usually they go hand in hand. Most non-lethals are more effective than the current program. Because the program's not effective. Literally, a non-lethal just needs to be somewhat effective, and it's more effective than the current program. So non-lethals, drone surveillance is such a good solution in terms of spotting a shark, identifying it via its top-down profile, whether it's a species of concern or not, and then clearing the water. That works very, very well on most of the New South Wales and the Queensland coastline. As you get up into North Queensland, not as effective because of water conditions and visibility.
Yeah.
Up there, though, you've got very sheltered bays. You've got very calm seas, so you can install barriers. You can literally install what people think a shark net is, which is a barrier to actually keep sharks away from people. You can install those, and they work perfectly in that environment. Visibility is not great, but it creates a physical barrier between sharks and swimmers. The perfect solution for up there. Now, these barriers, they don't entangle and kill animals. They're harder. They're flexible enough to move with the tide, but other than that, they're too hard for anything to get entangled. They literally are an exclusion device.
These are the ones that are shown on the doco over in WA?
So there's yes. So the one I'm referencing for North Queensland is the one. There's already 3 of these installations in Western Australia that work extremely well. They're called Eco Shark Barrier. They're made in WA. They're a fantastic solution. For areas with more swell and might be like really heavy surf breaks or something like that, they're possibly not as suitable there, although obviously they're working on it. But there's a different type of barrier coming out of South Africa, which is a form of artificial kelp. So it basically biomimics kelp. A kelp forest, and sharks don't like to swim through kelp forests. They are worried that they'll get entangled. So when you've got more swell, you can use a different type of barrier, which biomimics kelp. Just in case you've got a brave shark that doesn't mind swimming through this, it also has electrical repellents in them as well, as kind of a double second layer of protection, I guess. Now, these have been tested on white sharks. So you have a box of chum and a really, high level of shark attractant on one side of this artificial kelp. And on the other side, you've got white sharks, and they pace up and down, and then they give up. They will not swim through it. And that's been tested, and there's scientific papers about it. As well as there's a place for personal deterrence. You know what I mean? They're wearing these electrical deterrents that can hang off your ankle or go on the bottom of your surfboard. That's really good technology, and there's incredible video of sharks coming to investigate that electromagnetic field they really, really don't like, and they turn around, they go away very, very quickly in most cases.
It is pretty impressive to watch.
Yeah. So that's the three that we talk about in the doco. There's always more things being investigated and being developed. We only put in the doco those that have peer-reviewed papers or were rated very, very, very highly by the government's own investigation report into alternatives. So only solutions that had the highest level of efficacy went in the doco. But there's other things as well. There's that personal deterrent technology that currently goes on your surfboard or on your ankle. They've just, after the doco was finished, they've just created a net out of them, basically. So again, another type of barrier technology where it'll use electrical repellent to keep sharks out of a particular area. There's a shark bite resistant wetsuit now being developed and being tested by Flinders University down in South Australia on actual great white sharks.
Oh yeah,
there's all yeah. So it's neoprene bonded with this super strong material that is still flexible enough to wear and doesn't get wet and heavy like Kevlar used to. People have tried Kevlar wetsuits and they don't work. So it's this new blend, and the idea is that it will stop bleed injuries, which is what you die from. The shark bite victim will bleed out. That's the cause of death all the time. So it might not, this wetsuit might not stop crush injuries, because if a great white chomps on your leg, you're probably going to have a broken bone or two. But the concept behind it is, from speaking to the inventor, again, this is not in the film because this connection came about after the film was finished. From speaking to the inventor, the idea is to protect the femoral artery and for people to not bleed out. Because I'd rather be in a hospital bed with a broken bone or two and alive than the alternative. There's sonar repellents. There's all sorts of stuff that people are working on. In the doco is only the highest rated, peer-reviewed, science-backed ones that are currently commercially available. There's always stuff coming, and one thing we know for sure is there'll continue to be more. And the other thing we know for sure is what's currently in place doesn't work at all. So why not move to these new things? And the only answer to why not is political fear. Yeah.
And that political fear stems out of, 3 years from now, I'm going to have to try and get another 4-year term and my budget can't afford it. Well, actually, it can.
Had this exact conversation on another interview just the other day, in that this decision making in 4 years terms is fundamentally broken. You know what I mean? Like the furthest out that any politician is ever thinking is 4 years, because and that's on the night after they won the election. You know what I mean? That they're not going to think further out than that. So they're not going to transition a terrible program that's ineffective and super harmful. They're not going to transition that without a hell of a lot of pressure, which is why we're here. They're not going to transition that to a more modern, better program. Because they're not thinking about the future. They're thinking about the next election and no further ahead.
And money.
And money. Exactly right. But having said that, this doesn't make the doco, but you can check it out on our website. Ourselves, Sea Shepherd, Australian Marine Conservation Society, Humane Society International, Ocean Impact Organisation, a bunch of us got together, sat down around a table, and we actually costed out a modernisation proposal. So we went, okay, what we're advocating for, how much is it actually going to cost? Because you're right, it does come down to dollars. So we looked at every single beach. We did it only for Queensland initially. We're still going to do New South Wales. We did it only for Queensland initially. We went from Cairns all the way down to Coolangatta. Every single beach that is quote unquote protected by shark nets and drum lines. I hate that terminology because there's no protection, but
how many
it's the government terminology.
How many is
there? or the exact number eludes me, but it's around 50. I want to say it's around 50 beaches or something like that. So it's quite a few. Like might even be 60. Anyway, it's in the modernisation proposal, and we literally go through beach by beach and go, okay, what works here? And we didn't make it up ourselves. We went to this report that in 2019 the Queensland government had put together to look into alternatives, and we picked only the best, the highest, the most peer-reviewed solution for each area that was suitable to the area. So, for example, drones don't feature in North Queensland because the issue I mentioned earlier, which is visibility. Yeah. Barriers sometimes don't feature at the heaviest swell, like the beaches where they'd cop the most battering, because would they survive? Would they not? We don't know. So we went conservative. Like, what's clearly the best option here, without taking risks. And we costed it out the whole way down the Queensland coastline. And the answer you come up with is again, I've got to reinforce this. You're getting placebo equipment that does nothing out of the water, and you're putting something that actually is going to work in the water. First of all, is the result you get. Second of all, the result you get is after upfront infrastructure spend, and I'll talk about that in a second, because there's a cost to drones, there's a cost to installation of barriers. After that upfront infrastructure spend, you end up with a program that costs half as much than the current program. The current program's around $9 million a year in Queensland in operating expenses. We costed it out, including salaries of drone pilots and training of drone pilots and area managers for drone pilots and blah, 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 blah. It's well thought out and thought through. The program will be about half as much to run. So it'll be around the $4 million mark to run the program, $4.5 million mark. And that's after an upfront infrastructure spend one time of buying your fleet of drones and installing all your shark barriers. I forget the exact amount. I should probably know it off the top of my head, but it's around $30 million. And we pitched that at the time. We did this quite a while ago, like when the pandemic was first starting. We pitched that as a COVID recovery thing. Like you're building assets that, for when tourism returns, they pitch you as the world leader in shark mitigation by having built these assets. You're creating employment to build this infrastructure. And then once the program's running, you're creating ongoing employment for drone pilots and managers and blah, blah, blah. So this program would be more effective, cost half as much money after that upfront spend, and create way more jobs than the current program. Like there's about 40 drone pilots in that. Plus area managers, plus. Like it actually created a decent amount of employment too, as a bonus. So everything was going for it, and it didn't even get a response from the fisheries minister direct to us. It was obviously sent to him. We got not even the courtesy of a reply directly, and then all we got is him slamming it in the media, saying it's fanciful or it's madness or it's whatever the hell he said. I could go into my opinion on him all day and how fit he is for office or not, but I won't. I think people can make up their own mind. But not even the courtesy of a response, even though it's a well thought out plan with like the best minds in this area putting it together based on their own report that they had commissioned into what the best alternatives to nets and drumlines are. And it seems to have just gone into the waste paper basket of the fisheries minister, and he's had a crack at us in the media, and that was it for him. So
and even though they did have their own internal review, remind me if I get it wrong, I apologise, but didn't they get a review paper that said what you've got at the moment is ineffective, and if you take it out, there's going to be no difference to the safety of people on the beaches?
So that was said in a court case, yes. So slight tangent now, but Humane Society International took the Queensland Department of Fisheries to court to stop them running this program in the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park. The way they were legally able to achieve that is the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Act specifically says the number one mandate of this act is protect the biodiversity and environment and conserve the reef. So HSI's challenge was that running this program in that marine park goes against the mandate of the act. They won. And the reason they won was twofold. They were able to prove that it was harmful to the reef and the environment, and two, they were able to prove it was ineffective. And the bombshell moment of how they were able to prove that it was ineffective was Queensland Fisheries' own expert witness that they had called, that sits on their scientific working group, was asked point blank on the stand under oath, if this equipment was removed tomorrow, would it make any difference to human safety? And the answer was no. And that's the first time that's ever been said or admitted. And it takes being under oath for it to happen.
Yeah.
So again, telling. When you're not under oath, the minister for fisheries will happily put out a statement or go on TV and say, you know, we put human lives first, and the human safety is the absolute priority of our program, and we're not going to change it. But you put a scientist who knows what's what under oath and ask them if it works, a scientist who's aligned with the program and the department, and that's the answer you get. No, it doesn't.
And I think one of the big things I'm going to touch on it in the introduction to this episode is education and raising the awareness. And I think, and I hope, that your doco is going to certainly open a lot more eyes on this subject, because if we only think back within the last year on the global uproar of fishing and sharks, etc., and looking towards the Chinese fleet in the Galapagos, how many people got on their soapbox about that? And yet a lot of those people probably are completely oblivious as to what's happening off our own coast here in Australia.
Exactly right. This film is just a tool for awareness, and I think from awareness comes outrage. The two things go hand in hand. If you don't know what's happening, which I grew up here and I didn't know until I was mid to late 20s, if I didn't know, I'm certain that not 90% of society doesn't know either. So step one is awareness, and we hope to do that through this film, and that's the importance of us getting it on a popular streaming platform, and that's the importance of some of the decisions we've made around our branding and our marketing material. It's got to be appealing to your average Joe sitting on the couch, having a scroll through the streaming platform and going, that might look interesting. Yeah. From there, it's then my job as the director to engage them, keep them watching the whole film, and get the message across. And I hope the film does it. And if the film does it, in what timeline, who knows? We'll be playing our part to make sure it's as fast as possible. But from there, things should take care of themselves. Once enough people know the nonsense that's going on and the harm it does to the environment and the waste of money that it is, and that their politicians are pulling the wool over their eyes, from there, I think things take care of themselves. People won't stand for it. So you're right, like the Galapagos thing, in the days now of social media, that news can spread fast. That look at this giant, ghost fleet just destroying this beautiful area, and there's outrage about it, and hopefully that facilitates change. And this is the same version of that. This is a documentary going, look what's happening off your popular beaches. Did you know? And everyone goes, holy, no, I didn't know. That's some grade A BS. Yeah. We should do something about this. That's the concept.
Yeah, and it's you do put it together extremely well. I've said it a few times now, but it's a doco that I'm going to watch several times, and I'm sure I'm going to refer to it many, many, many more times in episodes to come on this podcast. That's for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and it's hard. It was hard work, and I have to admit, I got narrative wise in that keeping it compelling and keeping the story moving along and having that right balance of science and emotion and stuff. I got myself tired in pretzels a little bit in the editing phase. Like I just couldn't see the forest for the trees anymore at some point. Yeah. So I had a consulting editor come in, and kind of that was a godsend for me. It didn't need much. He was just in for I think a week or so, but kind of got me out of that. Just lost. Like I didn't know what direction I was looking, and what's compelling and what's not, and what's important information and what's just noise. Because you've been in it for so long and so deep. It's very, very hard. It's very, very hard. So, in future, at one point I hope to not need that second set of eyes, but that was vital on this project because, like I said, we were tied in pretzels in terms of narrative, but he added so much value, and I think he I wouldn't say single-handedly, but played a big part in making it as compelling as it is. Yeah.
Oh, good on him. It's teamwork makes the dream work, Anyone who's stupid enough to say that they know it all and they don't need any help, then they're definitely doing something wrong.
And I think with creative stuff like this, and I'm not your traditional creative. I come from a business background and approach things a little bit differently. But I think your traditional creatives sometimes, not always, they get a little bit like that. They know best, and no one can do my creative vision like me or whatever it is. But like, no, the one thing you learn in business is like you need good people around you, and all your people around you should probably be better at their particular area of expertise than you are. And yeah, that was definitely the case with our consulting editor Matt, who came in. Like he had a better grasp of narrative and audience engagement than I did at the stage I was in the project, and he just reset us and set us on the right direction. And yeah, there's a million examples of that through the process. But yeah, you've got to lean on people that are better than you and not be scared to do that. You know, and I think people only avoid that out of ego or not wanting to be seen as inferior or needing help, or I don't know. But yeah, there's one thing I could say to aspiring filmmakers is don't be that guy or girl where you think you know everything and you're the creative maestro. Like use people's expertise.
Yeah, there's always some bigger and better that knows a little bit more than you, so use it. So how did you feel? You know, this is not a small doco and it's not going to a small audience. How did you feel when you actually launched it, when you first clicked that button and said go?
That is a great question, and again probably requires a podcast on its own. So the most difficult period for me was late last year when the film was done, but we knew it needed a little bit more refining. Possibly was we did some preview screenings. So it was a cinema on demand model, meaning people would buy tickets, and if it passed a tipping point, the screening would happen, and if not enough tickets sold, it wouldn't happen. Those screenings for me were like one of the bottom 5 things I've ever experienced in my life. They were just, it was horrible. It was horrible seeing what you've pictured and worked so hard on for so long up on a big cinema screen. I remember the first one was not IMAX, what's it called? VMAX screen at an event cinemas. The first one was on a giant VMAX screen, and it was, I felt 2 centimeters tall. It was the most horrible thing, seeing your work up there. And like I said, like through the editing process, you've seen it 100 times already, and you know where every mistake is, and every shot that could have been slightly different and slightly better, and like you know all those things. And seeing it on a massive screen was pretty hard. I didn't enjoy that at all. There was not a lot of sleep that week. And I had to leave. I had to leave the cinema at times. I couldn't deal with it. But we then, refined it a bit, made it better, and I came. What helped was the response from those. So the overwhelming response from people walk out the front, and I was probably already out the front because I didn't want to watch it again. And people say, "Wow, like I had no idea that was going on. That's incredible. What the hell?" But like that response it really made me feel a lot better. Because at the end of the day, if an impact doco achieves impact, it's worked. Yeah. It doesn't matter what you or your ego thinks of, the quality of the shot or what lens you shot it on. Or none of that really matters if an impact doco had impact. So that made me feel a lot better. Then we went back, we made a few tweaks. There's a few subtle changes to the film with stuff that I literally could not bear looking at on a big screen. Like that shot's got to be changed, or we got to fix up the color on this shot. Like there's a few little changes like that. And then this time, second time, it's actually going out to the world in a much, much bigger way. Like the day it went live on Discovery Plus over in the US, or this round of cinema screenings that just happened. I feel a lot better about them because I think I've just gotten over the fact of all the things that I, with my critical eye, see as little imperfections. I've gotten over that, and I've realized that, wow, people like really, really like this thing. And yeah, like I said before a couple of times, if an impact doco has impact, it's done its job. So yeah, that's made me feel a lot better. But yeah, that first to circle back to your question, that first night of like, it's about to hit play in a cinema, and I got 200 other people in here watching it. That was not pleasant, I have to be honest. And I actually Googled it after to see if this is normal. Like I went online and I was like, anyway, so long story short, I found articles about a lot of actors that for their premieres, they will do the red carpet and pretend they're going to watch the film, and then they sneak out the fire escape because they can't watch themselves. And I was like, and then I felt a bit better about that too. I was like, thank God it's not just me. Yeah. It's not just me that can't stand watching their own work. So yeah, I felt a bit better, but it seems to do its job, and it is a good film. Go and see it. So I feel like I'm talking it down too much. Am I?
No, you're doing a fantastic job, mate. Talk it up. In fact, it doesn't need talking up. It just needs people to be aware aware it's there and they'll watch it. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like I'm a little bit too honest on these things sometimes, and my distributors probably, when they hear this, they're probably going to call me and go, "Would you stop talking down?" But yeah, I just look. Your average Joe won't notice any of the stuff. It's just I have a hypercritical eye for detail on every shot. So yeah, no, I'm probably over exaggerating it, but yeah, in the interest of transparency and being honest and making this a genuine chat, it wasn't pleasant to watch at. How wide's the cinema screen? I don't even know. I probably should know that. It wasn't pleasant watching it at that scale first time around.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I do a fair bit of editing with this when the producer's not doing it, and obviously underwater videos and photos and all that kind of stuff. And you produce stuff and people are like, "Oh, wow, that's awesome. How do you do that? It's fantastic." And you can just see that little fleck of dust in the corner or a little bit of discoloration, and you know it's there.
Yep. And then even the process, like, like there's a drone shot that's incredible. Like, don't get me wrong, it's incredible. We had a slightly better take of it, but then the wind hit the drone, it had a little wobble and you couldn't use the shot. There's even stuff like that. But anyway, that's just, I think, creator being hypercritical. But I think it blows the socks off most people that seem to see it. So it's done its job.
Yeah.
Or it will do its job. I'm confident it will do its job, I should say, because until it creates change, it hasn't really.
Yeah. Engaging
the audience is step one. Step two is actually ending or modernizing these programs. But I'm confident it might be the Kindle, the Kindle, is that what the word I'm trying to say? Kindling? Yeah. It might be the kindling to get that fire going for change.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, if we can help out in any which way possible, we will. And all the guys that you had on the show, if they want to come on the podcast and talk about the individual bits that they do and their involvement in the show as well, just tell them to hit me up, brother, and I can put them out here and we can get it out to the masses as much as possible.
Beautiful. No, I appreciate it. And thank you for having me on. And Jono, it's just how we connected, having him on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people. I think that's the important thing to mention too. It's like Jono's the one that's out on the water every weekend or every second weekend.
Yeah.
And, until they put this law in place to stop him. But they're out there seeing this horrible work and doing this horrible work every day and have been for years and years and years. I'm just a filmmaker who compiled it into a 90-minute narrative to make it compelling. But yeah, we are not by any stretch the heroes of this story. It's the people in the film on camera. That's why I'm intentionally not on camera, because I don't want to put myself in that category. I'm
going to have to stop you there because my background is military background. It's all about teamwork, and I'm going to err on the side of your team behind you saying, "Don't play it down. Don't play yourself down." What you've done, pooling the people together, bringing the information together, bringing the facts forward, and making it a compelling story, is arguably the hub of the whole project. So you are part of that team, and your part might not be out on the water, but what you're doing is just as important as what Jono's doing out on the water as well.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate it, and I just hope I do them all justice by this inspiring change. That's that's all I want, and I'll be a very, very, very happy man if that happens.
Me too. I'm keen to watch it go forward and see your successes.
Lovely. Thank you.
Happy days. And on that note, Andre, I think I'm going to round it off because I'm starting to get cold here in Sydney and I need to put the heating on and get a brew.
Too easy. Sounds good. I'm overdue for lunch too, so it works for me. But thank you so much for having me on. I'll definitely put that offer out to any of our cast and crew who might like to come on for a chat. And stay in touch. Don't be a stranger. Happy to chat anytime again in future. But thanks for letting me speak to your audience. And let's get behind this and get these programs modernized.
Well, let's sort out links and bits and pieces like that after the show. And I've got a few links that people might want to ask you questions as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Sounds good. The main thing that I will mention here, and the rest we'll put in the show notes, is envoyfilm.com.au/act now. That's the actions that we want you to take, which is petitions and signing up for protests and stuff like that. So, of course, go see the film, follow our socials, blah, 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 blah. But the main thing, which is the call to action at the very, very end of the film, spoiler, it's not really a spoiler, is go to envoyfilm.com.au/act now and do those actions to make our dissatisfaction with these programs heard.
Yeah, fantastic. Andre, once again, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, buddy, and I wish you well for the future and stay in touch. Let's get some action occurring.
Lovely. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate your time. Appreciate having me on. Have a good day, everyone. See ya.
Bye-bye.
This is Scuba Goat Under the Sea, the podcast for the inquisitive diver.